Hey, this is Wisconsin Shoe Guy, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to do a shoe battle between two very cool shoes. This is the Alfred Sargent Moore, and this, in a totally crazy comparison because they're not at the same level, is the Gaziano and Girling St. James 2. Here we go. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Wisconsin Shoe Guy, and our channel we talk about men's dress wear. It's all about footwear, and we talk about unboxing videos, general shoe knowledge, helping you understand the industry and what's happening with your shoes. We look at shoes critically to determine whether or not they're worth the price that they charge. We compare shoe to shoe to understand which one is the best of the same category, and then I interview experts in the field to get their take as well. Check out my playlists to see all my videos. Welcome back. This is Wisconsin Shoe Guy, and today we're going to look at the Alfred Sargent Adelaide and talk a little bit about how it compares to some others. I'm going to actually break this into different videos as I do it, but I'm going to be doing them in a row. One of my watchers actually suggested that I have a categorization where I look at the last, and I look at some of the structural things like the sole and things like that separately. Then I look at the quantitative measurements. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that for each of these. So I'm just going to repeat this piece in each of the videos as I compare this shoe to several others. So with that said, here we go. So the Alfred Sargent Moore is an Adelaide. It is a cap toe Adelaide. So Adelaides can come with a cap toe, or it can come with a medallion toe. I've never seen them with a plain toe, but I'm sure that that's possible as well. They have heel counters usually, although that is also an option. So like there's an Edmonds Adelaide called the Cornwallis that does not have heel counters, and actually has a medallion, right? But no cap. So there's a lot of different options that you can do. As we look at this particular one, we are going to look at the last first. Now the last is a very important part of the shoe, right? It is the overall shape and is going to give you the overall impression of the shoe when it's on the ground. This is especially important for hole cuts because hole cuts have very little adornment, right? They're just a plain piece of leather. And so the last is going to be what overall is the shape of the shoe. Well, that's true on a cap toe Oxford as well. The cap toe Oxford has a cap, but the vamp here really gets its structure and shape from the last. And so you can have a hole cut shoe or a cap toe Oxford shoe that can look like a clog, or you can have one that looks like a very sleek piece of footwear. So it's important to note. So as we look at the last here, this is a good sweeping last. It has a nice line as it comes back toward the heel. Okay, so the way that it gradually goes back is really good. It has plenty of room here for your foot. So I have a relatively wide foot, and I actually sized down for this in order to be able to get it. So the ball is a little bit on the tight side, but the rest of the shoe, the volume at the front is really, really good for my foot. A little bit of pinching here on my pinky toe, which I may have to put a shoe stretcher in order to accommodate, but so far so good. The heel is nice and tight, so you get that nice splush when you put your foot in. You know, use a shoehorn, right? Everybody says that. I don't always, but what I do is I hold the back of it as I pull it onto my foot. And I do like to have the splush to make sure that my heel is secure, because nothing is worse than having the heel slide on your foot. If that happens, then you get blisters, and that sucks. So anyway, the other thing that I really like about lasts is the way the toe is like a chisel, right? So this has this part here, it narrows, and then it has a relatively flat part here. Now it's not a square. Sometimes they'll call this a soft square. And there is a lot of variety when it comes to this in shoes. So as you look at this series of videos with the Alfred Sargent compared to the other one, you'll see that there are some that are more rounded than others, and some that are quite sharp. Now that is also true here, where it rises on the sides. So that can be a really big big change in the shoe. So as the last goes, right, you have the way the toe is, you have the sides, okay, and then you have the shape here, the sweeping part, okay, and then of course you have the heel and how well that fits to your foot. Okay. Now, some shoes are going to have a high instep last and some are going to have a low instep last. What does that mean? It means that the amount of leather here can vary. A lot of times what people want is they want a shoe that has very little in the way of a V-gap, okay, where this part just comes together very, very closely. And that can look really good, but a V-gap doesn't mean that the shoe doesn't fit you well. Sometimes if you have no V-gap up here, the shoe can be much too big. So it's a real catch-22, right? I prefer to have it with very little V-gap, but at the same time, if there's no V-gap and they come together, that's sometimes a sign that the shoe is too big. So something to keep in mind as you're looking at sizing and trying to keep it in. Now, the other piece, of course, is that leather does stretch, so you could have a V-gap on day one. I have a pair of CNES Adelaides that when I first got them, the V-gap was about 1.5 inches, and now it's down to almost 0. So again, it depends on the quality of the leather and how much they'll stretch. The higher end shoes stretch less, but they still stretch. It's leather, right? So something to consider. So anyway, so that's the last. So let's look at the sole. This is part of the Alfred Sargent exclusive range and has a really nice sole. It has a beveled waist, has a blind stitch sole. Now, this is also made with an oak bark tanned sole. So the leather is very, very long lasting. I have another pair of these that I've had for about a year and the wear is about the same as this. So it just wears off the ink that you do when you wear it the first couple times, and then it will just last and last and last and last. This is now, like if you look at a JR sole, that's a double oak bark tanned, and that will last longer, but this is also much better than, you know, some of your chrome tan soles or something like that is available on some other shoes. Now, how long should a sole last? This is a really, really hard question to answer because soles are really dependent on the way you walk. It's your the surface that you're walking on. It's your weight, the way you walk. Sometimes people have they walk like this. Okay, and so you can wear down the sole here, and it doesn't really matter where you wear the sole down first. Once the sole is worn down in one particular area, it's time to replace it. You know, you can't replace part of the sole. I know some people have done things where they replace only the front half and so forth, and you can do that, and it saves some money, but it really doesn't lengthen the length of the sole because you do want to make sure that you're using the same stitch holes on the welt. Otherwise you have to replace the welt, and when you replace the welt, that actually diminishes the life of the sole a lot, which is another reason that a lot of people prefer to go to a cobbler instead of sending their shoes to the factory, because the factories have to put so many shoes through the rotation that they'll actually remove the welts and put new welts on because it's actually faster for them. So something to consider. So like when I used to send my shoes to Alden Edmonds to have them recrafted, and it's a fine practice, right? But the shoes can only be recrafted 3 times, and then after that, and I've actually had it where on the second time they were too tight, and it was because the new welt went on and it was just a little bit tighter. So food for thought. But anyway, this is the Alfred Sargent. That is the last. That is the sole. You can see the heel here has this beautiful split here with a lot of leather and a little bit of rubber. That actually helps it wear down slower, which is all about extending the life of the shoe. So that is the Alfred Sargent. But not least, I have 2 cherry shoes in my arsenal. Plus I have some mahogany and wine. But if I look at the ones that have cherry in the name, I have the I have the Alfred Sargent Moors, and I have these. This is a Gaziano and Girling St. James 2. And this is on the TG73 last, so this isn't going to be like on a square deco last where it's similar to this. This last is just different, right? So as you look at the 2 together, this has a very slow sweep. Okay, it does not have huge rises on the sides, although it does square off, kind of like a rectangle at the toe, and it brings it back. Now what it does though, is it brings all of this back in a very sleek way. It brings all of this in a very Italian way. One of the things Gaziano and Girling is known for is Italian-like designs with English shoemaking quality. Now, the other side of this, of course, is the leather quality, which is just out of this world on this shoe. I could not be happier with the leather quality, and you could absolutely feel it just handling it. The design features, though, if you look at the peaks are also separate from the top line. The peaks are less separate from the top line on the other side because it is also asymmetric, okay? So it starts here, that would be level, and that's how far it goes down. It is another area where you will see that difference in feel. And then, of course, let's not forget, okay, we have the visual here, we have the visual here, okay, and proportionately, obviously, the toe, the cap is a little bit longer on the Gaziano and Girling. It brings it out. The sweep is a little bit more, not much, right? This is really, really small stuff. The big thing here is the quality of the leather, the fact that it's asymmetric, and the fact that this sole is now that sole, right? You have a nice fiddleback waist. You have double oak bark tanned soles that are bespoke grade, right? This is according to their website. You have the heels are substantially similar, and it's a very, very similar look, but a very different feel. And what do I mean by different feel? When I'm walking on these, and I've been walking for 10 hours and I'm continuing to walk, these soles feel softer than these do. And these feel softer than your average shoe, okay? I have to say that. So the Alfred Sargent does a really, really good job of putting together a nice shoe, okay? But this is a $500 shoe, and this is a $1,300 shoe, and you can tell just by the feel of the shoes. It is absolutely uncanny because I never thought I would really feel the difference that I do. The lining on this shoe is it's like upper material. It is absolutely flawless leather, and the overall shoe itself is just great. So I'll get into some of the technical details in the next section, but suffice it to say, this is a very, very senior cousin to the Alfred Sargent, but you know, at first glance, you know, you can think that they're pretty darn similar, but when you wear them for a while, that's when you notice the difference. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the finishing on these shoes. So we're going to start with the Alfred Sargent. And I think that the Alfred Sargent has a good amount of finishing, but some of it is left intentionally plain. And so that's going to be part of what we're looking at today, is what is left intentionally plain, and what is not. So we're going to start with the pinking, right? And the pinking is the area along the cap, along the edge, along the top line. And I'm going to say that this pinking is relatively fine. I do find it helpful to actually measure the pinking, because sometimes that can help determine whether it's actually finer or not. And this is looking at like 3 millimeter pinking, and it is consistent across the whole shoe. When it comes to fudging, and fudging is along the edge here on the top of the welt, when they take that wheel and they put in that really nice pattern, there is no fudging on the Alfred Sargent at all, not even on the inside. So it's just, it's relatively straightforward. Now the sole edge itself, which is right here, okay, this has been finished. So it has a ridge at the top, and it has a ridge at the bottom, okay, and you can feel that. And then when it comes to actually by the waist, where it's beveled, the sole has like a rounded edge along the edge there. So it's rounded here, or beveled, okay, and then it's ironed with the groove at the top and the bottom all the way around here. So it's like a 180 iron, and then the rest of that 270 is got that bevel shape to it. Now the heel itself, somebody used a wheel and artistically did a little finishing piece on the edge there as well. As I stated earlier, the heel cap, or the heel counter, is actually in 2 pieces with a seam down the middle. There is stitching on either side of that seam instead of just having a plain seam, and of course there's the flap over the top as well, which is pretty common on these. the counter actually extends beyond the heel. These heels, as I said before, are actually really short, and usually they that centimeter where it is short is normally taken up by the heel actually going out there. So that's an interesting detail there. I think they wanted to make room for the bevel. That's just my opinion, but again, I'm not a shoemaker. I have no idea in terms of why they would do that, so that's just my assumption in looking at it. And of course, we said on the sole before, the sole is beautiful, has all this, you know, it has the bevel waist, and it has this, you know, blind stitch on there as well. When we look at extras, you know, there isn't a lot of hand stitching. When it comes to the skiving, and what skiving is when you put a toe cap on, and you know, they don't actually have the leather going all the way underneath, so the cap doesn't go over. They're actually joining two pieces of leather here. What they do is they thin the leather so that this gap from the cap to the vamp is as thin as possible. And I'm going to say that they did not skive this extremely thin. When I look at some of my other shoes, which I'll look at in my in the different battles here, I know that is actually thinner. Now, in terms of actually measuring it, I can't tell whether that's actually a whole millimeter of thickness or not. I will tell you that it's thicker than my tape. Okay, so I'm gonna say it's more than a millimeter, and I'm gonna use that as my judge. Right? Is it thicker than the tape? Can I still feel the tape when I put the tape on top of it? And in this case, I do. So that's going to say I'm going to say that those edges are on the thick side, on the Alfred Sargent. In terms of other pieces, that's the last things we're going to measure are the density of the stitches. Okay, and this is just a very very straightforward measurement. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 stitches per centimeter across the top here. I always measure at the cap toe on Adelaide's because it's always the same. And then when it comes to the sole, this is normally 3. For the sole, it is, I'm going to say 3.5, almost 4. Almost 4 stitches per centimeter on the sole. So that is the Alfred Sargent. So it's time to come and look at the finishing stage for our Gaziano and Girling St. James. Now, we looked at this from a lot of different ways before, but right now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on finishing, and then we'll look at the stitch density and soles. We talked about this being asymmetric. If you look at the pinking on this is very fine. Really looking at, it is about a millimeter from the bottom of the pink to the top of the pink, so it's 2 millimeters there. If we look at the skiving, okay, I cannot feel a ledge here, so the skiving is at the 1 millimeter level, which you'd expect for a shoe of this quality. So it's very smooth. If you look at the clicking, this is a single piece. There's no seam on the heel, and the rest of it is just as good. There's no bunching of leather anywhere. Everything really just feels perfect. Okay, as it feels perfect on the foot. When you look at the heels, they have 3-nail pattern, 3-nail pattern, 3-nail, 3-nail. Versus the Alfred Sargent is 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay. If we look at the Alfred Sargent has a little bit smaller piece of rubber at the heel. If you look at the shape, obviously the shape is the same, and that really shows in the looking at the last. Now you can see that the Alfred Sargent is a little bit higher, a little bit squarer. But does not have the fiddleback waist to the same degree as the Gaziano and Girling at all, right? There isn't any hand stitching on here that I know of. Now I do know that, you know, according to literature, Gaziano and Girling is hand lasted, so that is a difference that they do as well, and that makes it for an exciting look at the shoe. And then at the end, the sole edge is from here to here, okay? So it's the 180 degrees, and it has the bevel edge on the top and on the bottom. Then if you look at the stitch density, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let me make sure I've got that right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So 7 stitches per centimeter, which is a record. That's more than usual. And then from a sole stitch, I have to be able to actually see it. So I can see it if I look on the inside of the grooves here. The fudging on this is really on the edge. It does not go over. The sole. So the sole stitch on these is 4. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I take that back. It is 5. 5 stitches per centimeter on the sole. So really, you know, something as you think about this, it's the little details that really make the high-end shoe, and that's why they are what they are. That's why people buy them, and that's why, you know, these are in the, you know, realm of Edward Green versus in the realm of Alfred Sargent. So, but that's not to say that Alfred Sargent doesn't make great shoes. It's just different. So with that, I'm going to close down on the finishing aspect of this. The fudging, which I talked about briefly, is there, but it's really on the edge of the welt. It doesn't cross over the stitching. And it's the stitching is pretty close here, so it just doesn't go that far. You could see that they took the time to do it, but they didn't use it to cover the stitches like they did with, say, the ends open off it before. So anyway, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. In conclusion, we have a battle of the cherries, and both shoes are cherry, but one is clearly more cherry than the other, and that is Gaziano and Girling. The style on this is just totally next level. The last is next level. The construction and finishing is next level. At the end of the day, it's not really a contest, nor should it be, because the shoe costs a whole lot more. So just something to think about. You do get what you pay for. The question is are those things that you pay for worth the difference in price? At the end of the day, for me, being able to be on my feet for 20 hours a day and feeling like they're brand new, and feeling like my feet, like I just started walking, is huge value for me. But I know that not everybody has the means to be able to afford that. So that is a choice that you need to make.